Okay, in this lecture we're going to be talking about 3D maps in the new Excel 2016. This is a really cool feature. It's not entirely different than the previous Power Maps, but now it's integrated right into the ribbon. You can just go to the Insert feature and you can create a 3D map pretty quickly, but it could be very practical for a very rich 3D visualization of something like product distribution, income per city or per state or per country, any sort of data visualization that relates specifically to geography on any scale, really. But for the purposes of this course and as a demonstration for you, I've come up with kind of a fun little 3D map based on places in Europe that I'd like to go on vacation. So let me just show you the chart that I've started with. To create a 3D map, you need to have some sort of quantity or value. You need to have locations. So you can use addresses or you can use city names, you can use zip codes, but it has to be formulated into a range or a table that the map can pull from, and it has to be specific, accurate, and clear enough that it can calculate all your data. So I've just created this very basic range here for places where I'd like to go on vacation and the importance of each of those places on my list. And this is certainly not all inclusive, it's just kind of a random list that I came up with. But you can see the city here in the first column, and then I have the country listed in the second column, and then I have a ranking by priority. So the top ranked city here in Crete is number 15, so that's the highest priority, and the lowest ranking priority would be in Italy here. And that's just going to allow my 3D map to show some more interesting visualizations for each of these cities. Another interesting thing to note is that this 3D Maps function in Excel 2016 is going to use Bing Maps. And Bing Maps doesn't recognize every city name, particularly with some smaller, more obscure cities. And it also is fairly particular on how things are worded in order for it to recognize them. So for instance, this little town of Saint-Gall, Germany, hopefully I said that at least close to right, is actually spelled like this in Germany. And if I don't spell it like that, it won't plot it on the map. And the other interesting thing is I put in London, England here, but Bing actually wants to see it called United Kingdom. So we'll modify our data to make it work, and sometimes you'll just have to check your results to make sure that whatever you put in is recognized by Bing, and then you just click anywhere in the range, or you can highlight the whole range if you want. Then you go to 3D Maps here, click the drop down, click Open 3D Maps, and the first time that you do this, it's going to essentially ask you if it can add 3D Maps as an add-in, and it's basically already incorporated into Excel. But in my case, it did take a few minutes, and Excel sort of locked up for a little bit while it was getting it all figured out, which is fairly understandable because I'm sure it's a pretty large bit of software. So anyway, you click Open 3D Maps, and it basically is talking about tours. So you can see that I've already created one here, but I could also go to create a new tour. And what I'll do is I'll show you the one I've already created, and then I'll create a new tour to show you essentially some of the ways that you can create one. So this just brings you right to my plotted cities on the map. And you can see that they're all plotted on the map, and the height of each bar is based on how I ranked each city for my priority to visit there. So you can see over here that the city of Enna in Sicily, I've already been there, so it was sort of low on my priority list to go back, and so the bar is small. On the other hand, the city of Capri, Italy, I've never been to, and it was high on my priority list, so it's created a high bar. Same with Cinque Terre, or then you have somewhere like Chamonix where I've been but would love to go back, and it's a little bit lower on the priority list. So you can just see how it's really created a rich visual representation of the list of data that I created. So a couple of things we can do with this is there are different themes. For instance, you can go to the simpler theme here. I was just in the Arial color, which is more of a satellite type image. There's another one, more of a grayscale. There's a subdued one if you really want to see your data points standing out on the map. And there are several others. I'll just show you one really funky one, which is like a glow. Kind of looks like a night scene. But those are your options for themes. I'll just go back to the original one that I had. And then you have some options up here in your view pane. You can do the tour editor, which brings up these basically aerial views. It's essentially a video representation of your data. You have your layer pane, and this is where you actually enter in your data for the maps to interpret it. And I'll show you a little more on this later. And then you have your field list, which shows, in this case I'm looking at range 3. It has my city, country, and vacation priority. And you use these to drop into your layers to get the data that you're looking for. Like I said, I'll go into that in just a minute, but let's look at one of the tours real quick here. I'm going to start playing this one, and it's just going to go through these different short tours and do basically a flyby. So here's the first one. It's basically just circling around the area, and you can see all the plots. That's a transition into another flyover. Now you can see it slowly flying over the region. And then that's another transition, and the globe starts to rotate as you kind of fly by it. And then it stops, and you just click the back button, and it brings you back. So let's go back to our Excel spreadsheet, and let's create one of these sort of from scratch. I won't go into all the details, but I'll show you the important parts. So again, I just click in my range, go to 3D map, open 3D maps, and let's do a new tour. So it's just going to be blank now. The important part here is this field list, and you can, if you close this, you can find it right up here in your view. So you click on that. And this has some old ranges in there from various other things that I've been messing with. But what we want to do is go to the range that is appropriate to the data that we're using. And I want to take my city and put it into the location field. And then you'll see it's immediately plotted all of these cities on the map. And the height is how tall those columns are going to be. And my ranking of vacation priority is going to be the relevant data to make those heights taller or shorter. So I'm going to drop that into the height field. And then you can see those grew right out according to the rankings that I gave to their priority. Now it always puts these layer summaries in here, which if you have a lot of data, you could use these to visualize things. But I find it generally is just getting in the way. So I'm just going to right click that and remove it. And so if you had more data points in here, you could use those. The only other thing I'm going to do is you can see that these are all the same color, and that's a little boring. So I'm going to actually take the vacation priority again and put it into the category field, and then it's going to just sort these into different categories so it's a little bit more visually appealing. Now obviously there's a ton that you can do with this, but this is kind of a basic tour of it just so you can kind of see how cool it is. So I'll close that out. A couple other things, you can change your data. So we're in stacked columns, which doesn't apply because I just have very simple data here. You can do regular columns, which also is the same as what I already have because this data is really simple. You can do bubbles, and again that gives you a real visual of the priorities. So obviously this city in Crete is very high priority, whereas Enna is low priority. So you can just kind of see how that's ranked. You can go to a heat map, so it just shows the intensity of the priority. And then this one goes by region, which wouldn't apply here because I just have cities. But if you had a lot of data in different regions, then it would chart and basically show you the priority of each entire region. And then of course we can change the theme. So if I want to go to like more of a global theme, I'll go back to my bars. I'm going to add my vacation priority into the category. Then of course you can move this around. You can come in at a lower angle by clicking that. You can come in at a, almost vertical or like top view almost, but I kind of like this lower angle, and then you can kind of shift around by clicking that one, and then you can either grab it and pull it like this, and then you can, I'm scrolling with my mouse to go in or out, but you can also use this to zoom in or zoom out. And then of course it's already created one tour here, and I can click play and it'll show me what it's going to show me, but it doesn't really have any animation attached to that yet. And the animation takes a little bit of playing with to get it right. But I'm going to change the settings on this, and I'll do a circle, which basically makes it fly around in a circle. I'm going to make it go as fast as it can because it's usually pretty slow, and I'm just going to make this 6 seconds long. You can name it, and then we'll close that, and I'll click play again, and you can see it's just kind of doing a circle fly around of my data. You can create more of these, of course, which is what I did before. You can basically say new scene here. You can say copy scene, or you can go like with a new scene, and then it's having me kind of start all over. So an easier way to do that is just to go copy scene. Oops, like this. Copy scene, and then I can go into this and I can modify what I'm going to do with it. Go into my settings again, change it. Like if I want to do a flyover, I can do that. This is your transition between scenes. So if you set this too low, it'll transition really fast. 3 seconds, you'll see it's about right. So now if I click play on my first one, it's going to do my little fly around. And then it's going to do 3 seconds of transition into the other one, and now it's going to do a flyover. That's it. So that's how you use 3D maps in Excel 2016 to create a really rich visual image or display of your geographical data.